Welcome to part 4 of this 4-part series. We put together this quilt and I broke it down in different pieces. Part 1 was we cut all the fabric and we sewed all the pieces into the blocks and we made the entire quilt top, including the borders. And that took a little bit of time, a little bit of finagling, a little bit of sewing, some particular sewing around here on the friendship star. In part 2, we made the quilt sandwich. It was the backing and the batting and the quilt top. And then we stitched it together just using an easy, simple stitch in the ditch with my stitch in the ditch presser foot on my sewing machine. And then in part 3, we added the binding. I showed you exactly how I like to do the binding and a couple of little embroidery items on there. So it's all done, and I just felt like in part 4 we just need to talk about the cost of a quilt and the time. Those two pieces are so critical. So in this, and I've got my notes here, in this quilt, the quilt top alone was 3 yards. So it was 3 yards for the focus fabric, fabric 1, or fabric 2, and then fabric 3. And so each of those, I didn't use cheap fabric. I went ahead and went to a quilt shop and bought $13.50 yard of fabric. I wanted it to last and I just wanted to know it was good quality. So some of it is Riley Blake, some of it is Moda, and the other is Lori Holt. Yes, Lori Holt was the red. This one is Riley Blake, and then the white is Moda. And the Moda I got from Shabby Fabrics. That's the one I do remember where I purchased it. So 3 yards at $13.50, and I'll put the numbers up here, comes to $40.50. That's just to make the quilt top. Now we don't have the batting yet. We have not added the backing or the binding. There's a lot of things that we still have not added. So it's just the fabric that we sewed together to make the quilt top. And then I purchased a half a yard for the binding. So that came up to $6.75. And then the batting, I used a twin size batting, and it was $16.99. I did get it at Hobby Lobby. It was the Warm and Natural. That's my favorite. I like the feel of it, and I know it's going to last a long time. It'll also last a long time even washing it. So if it gets dirty, I can throw it in the wash and I'm good. I don't have to worry. Now the backing is the same amount as the front because I used 3 yards of backing, and that came up to $40.50. So with the quilt top, the backing, the binding, and the batting, it comes up to roughly $105. That's just supplies. That doesn't include my time. So I calculated I had about 10 hours tied up, anywhere from 8 to 10 hours. And most of it was just stitching the stitch in the ditch. And so if you figure out 10 hours, and let's say I deemed my time $30 an hour, that's $300 in labor. So when you're gifting this quilt, you're giving somebody something of value, roughly $400, a little over $400. Now I know we don't get paid for it when we give it as a gift, but I would include it in the value. Is that something that you want to give someone else, is a $400 gift? I would kind of look at it that way. And then I did add a couple pieces of embroidery. I did the 1776 over here. And then on this block, I did 2026. And then on the back, I did a label. So I did it in embroidery, so it'll last forever. I was afraid if I did another, kind of a printed kind of label, that through the wash, it would wear. It just would, and then you wouldn't be able to see it. So since I really wanted this to be an heirloom, I went ahead and took the time. So each one of these, I did have to have an embroidery machine, and that is $800 is what I spent on mine. And it took about 20 to 30 minutes to stitch each block. And so you can add that into the total, and then it'll increase the value even more. And then my sewing machine, you have to have a sewing machine. The one that I used was the FOF Passport 3.0, and I paid like $800 for it 6 or 7 years ago. So you can kind of figure those costs in like that. So if you add all of the equipment, you need the rotary cutter and the ruler and the mat and thread and scissors and a seam ripper. I did have to rip out a few things, a seam ripper, and just all your basic necessities to make anything. The value adds up. But more than anything, I think it's your time and it's your attitude and the love that you put into it to the person that you're going to give it to. Now, I'm keeping this one, but someday somebody will have it and it will be of value. Right now, it's just something I made. So, really, I had $105 tied up into it, just making it for myself. But I just wanted to line all of that out so you would understand how much a quilt costs. Now, this one is 42 by 65, so it's not even a twin size. I can throw it over a twin size and just kind of enhance what it looks like. I can throw it over my couch just as kind of a decorative item in my living room. But it's, if you go bigger, then it's going to cost more. If you want to cover your king size bed, it would cost probably 5 times more because you would need all that fabric, all the batting, all the backing and the binding, and it just keeps adding up. So this is minimum for this 42 by 65-inch lap quilt. Now you can use it as, a picnic quilt for two. That would be really cute. But just the basics. So I'll recap right here. I had $105 tied up in it, not including any of my equipment. I did buy some thread, so, add in a little here and there, and that doesn't include tax. Whatever your sales tax is where you live, that will be added onto it. And then my time, extra $300, I would say. I wouldn't discount it and say, oh, I'll only charge $20 an hour. That's a hard $20 an hour to have to charge and sew and work. That is a lot of labor for $20 an hour. So just realize that when someone gives you a hand sewn gift, it's very special. They really thought you were special enough to put the time and effort and the money into it. Now, if you're turning it into a business, whole different story. You want your labor to mean something. Don't discount yourself because you have a skill and your skill is like no other. Find someone else on your street who does what you do, or in your church who does what you do, or just in your community. I don't know too many people who actually sew and have been sewing for a long time. Thank you so much for going through all 4 parts of this series, and I will have some more videos for you here soon. I've got so many ideas brewing through my head that I kind of can't get them done fast enough. So go ahead and like and subscribe, and I would love to know in the comments below what you've been making and what you think the cost was of that particular gift. That would be so interesting to me, and just to see, and send me a picture. Go ahead and email me a picture. I would love to see what you're doing. So thank you so much for joining me here at So Chill Sewing Studio, and I will see you in the next video.